You ever think your neighborhood is finally calming down, and then something happens that feels like the start of a whole TV drama series? That's what it felt like the morning everything changed with my HOA. And yes, it all started with a lake. My lake. Imagine someone tries to host a whole community fishing event on your private lake. What would you do? Lock the gate or let the chaos happen? Tell me in the comments before watching. Before I get to the chaos, let me take you back a bit. I moved into Maple Ridge Estates, Missouri in August 2018. It was one of those cozy neighborhoods with perfect lawns, matching mailboxes, and neighbors who waved at you even if they didn't know your name. The biggest selling point for me, though, wasn't the houses. It was the small, quiet lake behind my backyard, Lake Pineview. The lake wasn't huge, it wasn't fancy, but it was quiet, peaceful, and mine. Well, technically not the entire lake. But the piece of land that touched the shoreline was part of my deed, and it included something called an exclusive use easement. If that term sounds complicated, here's the simple version. My property line touches the water. Because of that, I'm legally allowed to use that shoreline. And only homeowners whose land touches the lake can use it. No neighborhood free-for-all, no random fishing parties, no kids jumping off the rocks like it's a water park. Just peaceful mornings with my fishing pole, the sound of water, and maybe a duck or two complaining about absolutely nothing. The rule wasn't something I made up. It was written in my deed and backed by the law. The HOA attorney even repeated it many times. Exclusive use easements override HOA preferences under Missouri Revised Statutes 442.26. Translation: the HOA can't turn my private lake access into a community playground. Simple, clear, legal. But in every neighborhood, there is always one person who thinks the rules don't apply to them. Enter Cheryl Harrison, aka Karen. Her real name was Cheryl Harrison, the HOA vice president, but nobody, and I mean nobody, called her Cheryl. She was the kind of person who walked around with a clipboard pointing at people's flower pots like they were breaking federal law. She had short blonde hair that never moved, sunglasses that covered half her face, and the attitude of someone who had been waiting her whole life to tell people what to do. If there was a rule, she enforced it. If there wasn't a rule, she tried to create one. You know the type. Ever since I moved in, she had been obsessed with the lake. She hated that it wasn't part of the HOA community spaces. She hated that people asked her if they could use it, and she had to tell them no. And she especially hated that I didn't bow to her like she was the queen of Maple Ridge Estates. For 5 long years, she tried everything. Petitions, complaints, door-to-door surveys, emergency HOA meetings, fake rule proposals, printing pages of random internet laws and waving them around. Every single time the HOA's actual attorney told her, "You can't change a private property easement. Missouri law protects the owner." But Karen didn't believe facts. Karen didn't believe her own HOA's lawyer. Karen believed Karen. She made lake access her personal battle, her mission, her identity. And honestly, most of us learned to ignore her because she got loud but never got her way. Until she decided she'd had enough. The day everything changed, June 17th, 2023. It was a warm Saturday morning, the kind of morning that makes you open your windows and think, wow, today's gonna be peaceful. Oh, how wrong I was. I was pouring coffee in the kitchen when I heard something strange outside. Voices, a lot of them, and laughter, like a group of people were gathering somewhere they shouldn't be. At first, I thought maybe a family was having a barbecue earlier. Maybe someone was moving furniture. I stepped toward the window, and I saw something that made me choke on my coffee. Dozens of people, kids, adults, neighbors from the far side of the neighborhood, were walking across the common area toward my lake gate. Some had fishing rods, some carried coolers, some dragged folding chairs like they were heading to a summer festival. And in the middle of this bizarre parade, Karen. Wearing a bright neon pink HOA volunteer vest, holding a clipboard like it was a royal scepter, with a giant banner behind her that read, Maple Ridge Community Fishing Day, hosted by your HOA. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, looked again. Nope, not a dream. A nightmare maybe, but not a dream. I stormed outside and walked straight toward her. Karen, what is this? She turned around with the smuggest smile I had ever seen on a human face. Oh, she said sweetly. Didn't you hear? We're finally opening the lake to everyone. The board approved it. I stared at her like she had just claimed she invented water. No, they didn't. And even if they tried, they can't. She lifted her chin and tried to look powerful. Actually, I found a law that says this lake must be available for community use. Where did you find this law? I asked. She pulled out a stack of papers, not legal papers, but printed internet articles, random quotes, probably a Wikipedia screenshot somewhere in there. This is from the Missouri Open Lakes Access Initiative, she said proudly. I sighed. Karen, that only applies to public waterways. This lake is private. It's written in my deed. Remember the one the HOA attorney explained to you?
She ignored every word I said and turned back to the crowd. Everyone, come on in. Don't be shy. The lake is now open. The decision that sparked the war. I walked over to the gate at the edge of my property, the same gate that separated the public walking path from my private lakeside area. I closed it and locked it. A sharp click echoed through the air. Karen's smile dropped faster than a rock in deep water. Her eyes widened. Her jaw dropped. She looked at me like I had slapped her clipboard out of her hands. "What are you doing?" she shrieked. "What I've always done," I said calmly. "Protecting my property." "This gate is part of the HOA," she snapped. "No," I said, tapping the deed map attached to the post. "It's on my land, 20 feet inside my boundary line." She looked like she was about to explode. Then she said the 6 words that would turn a peaceful Saturday morning into a full-on disaster. "You can't stop a community event." And that's when it happened. The moment that rewrote the entire day, the neighborhood, and honestly, the whole year. I had no idea that locking that gate, one tiny click, would bring police to my driveway, split the neighborhood in half, and make Karen scream, "I have rights!" so loudly that even the ducks paddled away in fear. Saturday morning, 8:14 a.m. You know that moment right after waking up when the world still feels calm and soft, when your brain is still warming up and you're thinking about breakfast, not chaos? Yeah, that moment didn't last long. The first thing I heard was noise. Loud noise. Voices, laughing, lots of footsteps crunching over gravel, like a crowd at a county fair. At first, I thought maybe someone's kids were having an early birthday party. But then I heard someone yell, "The event starts in 10 minutes!" Event? What event? My stomach dropped. I rushed to my back window and peeled open the blinds. And that's when I saw it. The banner of doom. Right there, blocking half the beautiful view of my lake, was a giant banner stretched between 2 metal poles. The letters were so huge you could probably read them from orbit. Maple Ridge Community Fishing Day, hosted by your HOA. The words hit me like a punch in the face. 20 people, maybe more, were marching toward my lake gate. Kids were running around with fishing rods twice their height. Adults dragged coolers stuffed with who knows what. A couple of teenagers carried portable speakers, probably planning to blast music all morning. And right in the middle of the crowd, there she was. Karen, wearing her neon pink HOA vest like she was leading the annual Maple Ridge Parade. Her sunglasses reflected the morning sun like 2 tiny, angry mirrors. Her smile was huge, wide enough to look painful. You know those smiles villains have in movies? That was her. I didn't even finish my coffee. I went straight outside. The confrontation begins. "Karen, what are you doing?" I demanded as I reached the walking trail. She turned slowly, dramatically, like she had been waiting her whole life for this moment. "Oh, hi," she said, waving her clipboard. "Isn't it exciting? The HOA board approved our first annual community fishing day." She spoke in the voice people use when they know you're going to hate something and they're enjoying every second of it. I stepped closer. "Karen, you know this lake is private." "Oh, no, no, no," she chirped. "You're mistaken. Today, we're opening the lake to all residents. It's community property now." This woman had lost her mind. I took a deep breath. Time to try logic again. Karen versus actual laws. "Karen," I said slowly. "HOA bylaws section 4.2 clearly says the association can't use or modify exclusive use property without the owner's written consent." "Which you don't have," I added. She flipped through her clipboard papers dramatically, like she was signing autographs. Then she snapped back. "Well," she said, talking fast, "Missouri's Open Lakes Access Initiative says you can't restrict community water, so this lake is fair game." I stared at her. For a second, I honestly wondered if she had hit her head. "Karen," I said, trying not to laugh, "that law is about public lakes. Public. This lake is privately deeded. My deed literally shows the easement. I even tapped my pocket. I had a copy with me." But she didn't care. Karen never cared about facts. Karen cared about Karen winning. Karen's announcement of chaos. She turned away from me and faced the crowd like some sort of queen addressing her royal subjects. "Everyone," she shouted, "don't worry about him. The lake is open. Come on in. Pick any spot you want." People started cheering. Kids grabbed nets. Someone cracked open a soda. A portable speaker turned on music. It was turning into a carnival. My blood pressure went up so fast, I swear I heard buzzing in my ears. That was it. I walked straight to the gate. The click heard around the neighborhood. The old metal gate sat between my yard and the public trail. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid, and it had a brand new lock. I stepped in front of it, made sure Karen could see me, and then, click! I locked it. It was a simple sound, soft, barely louder than a finger snap. But to Karen, it was the sound of her entire ego collapsing. She gasped like I had pushed her into the lake. Her mouth dropped so wide she could have swallowed a trout whole. You locked it?" she cried. "Yes," I said, calmly, "on my property." "This is illegal," she shrieked. "No," I said, and because I know it would make her even angrier, I added, "It's actually extremely legal." The crowd starts realizing something is off. Some of the neighbors slowed down. A few stopped walking toward the gate. One dad leaned to his wife and whispered, "Wait, is this actually allowed?" A couple of kids looked confused. A teenager lowered his speaker. People started glancing between me and Karen and the giant banner. They were beginning to suspect something.
They were beginning to wonder if they had been tricked. Meanwhile, Karen stomped forward like she was about to declare war on me personally. "This gate is HOA property," she shouted. "It's on my land," I corrected. "Check the plat map. The HOA attorney explained this." She shook her head so hard her sunglasses almost fell off. No, you can't block a community event." "Karen," I said, "you made up the event. The HOA didn't approve this." She froze for a half-second, and in that second, her face turned red. Not embarrassed red, more like volcano erupting red. The moment things got worse. She took a step closer, pointing her clipboard at me like a sword. "You're going to regret this," she barked. I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, am I?" She huffed. "You can't stop all these people from using the lake." "I can, and I am." I folded my arms. She stormed around the gate and grabbed the metal bars as if she could shake them open by pure rage alone. The gate didn't move. She tried again. Still didn't move. Then she screamed, loud, dramatic, and full of rage. "This is not over." The whole crowd went silent. Even the birds stopped chirping. The moment I made it worse, on purpose. That's when I did the thing that pushed Karen from angry Karen
to supervillain Karen. I took out my phone, and I hit record. Her eyes widened. "You're filming me?" she shrieked. "It's for documentation, since you're trespassing and organizing an illegal event on my property." She nearly levitated with anger. But locking that gate wasn't the real spark. What I did next pushed Karen over the edge so hard, she went full supervillain, screamed threats, and ended up calling the police on me. If looks could burn holes, Karen would have turned me into a pile of ash right there at the gate. She stormed toward me with the energy of someone who had waited her entire life for a dramatic showdown. Her face was bright red, her sunglasses were crooked, and her clipboard was shaking in her hand like it wanted to escape. The crowd behind her grew quiet. People started sensing something major was about to go down. "You can't lock a community gate," she screeched, her voice cracking like a microphone turned up too loud. I didn't move an inch. "It's my property line," I said calmly. "My land, my gate, my lake access." Her mouth opened and closed like a surprised goldfish. That only made her angrier. Suddenly, Karen reached into her huge pink tote bag and yanked out a messy stack of papers. They were bent, half-stapled, and looked like she printed them at 2 a.m. using 5% battery on Office Word. "This," she shouted, shoving them into my chest hard enough to wrinkle my shirt, "proves I can open this gate." I looked down at the papers. They were a disaster. Random bold words, weird underlines, sentences that made no sense. One page literally had clip art of a gavel. These weren't legal documents. These were the kind of papers kids turn in when they do homework in the car on the way to school. I held up the stack between two fingers like it might be contagious. "Karen," I said, "nothing in here overrides my deed. Or Missouri Revised Statute Section 448-3-103. I even quoted it slowly so the crowd could hear. "Associations may regulate common property, but not private property assigned by deed." A couple of neighbors nodded. Someone whispered, "Well, that sounds pretty clear." Karen's eye twitched. "I don't care what the deed says," she screamed, throwing her hands up like a cartoon villain. "I have rights." The crowd started waking up. Her voice echoed across the lake. Birds flew off the trees. A kid in the crowd dropped his fishing rod. A grandma covered her ears. Behind her, the energy of the group shifted. People started whispering to each other. Did the board really approve this? Wait, did she lie? I thought this was an official HOA thing. She said the attorney signed off on it. Two families actually grabbed their folding chairs and started backing away quietly, like they were trying to sneak out of a concert before traffic hit. A man leaned toward his wife and murmured, "I don't think this is legal at all." The truth was finally sinking in. This whole event wasn't the HOA's idea. It wasn't community approved. It was Karen's personal mission, her revenge fantasy, her attempt to take what she had no right to. People were starting to realize they'd been dragged into her war against me. Karen lost it completely. Karen saw them pulling back and she panicked. Her voice suddenly went high and shaky, like she was about to cry or explode. Maybe both. "No, don't leave. The lake is for everyone," she yelled. Someone gently answered, "But he owns that part." That cracked something inside her. She spun back toward me and grabbed the gate with both hands. "Open this now," she yanked. The gate didn't even rattle. She pulled harder. Still nothing. Then she leaned her entire body weight back like she was trying to rip the gate out of the earth. It didn't budge. She let go and stared at her hands like the gate personally betrayed her. That's when she took things from angry neighbor to full sitcom meltdown. The fence climbing fiasco. Karen kicked off her sandals aggressively and threw one of them at the grass. "Oh boy," someone whispered. "She's really doing this," another said. Karen grabbed the fence, planted one foot on the lower bar, and tried to climb. Let me repeat that. She tried to climb a 6-foot fence in a pencil skirt with no shoes in front of 20 neighbors. She got 1 foot up. Just one.
Then, snap.
Her sandal strap broke. Karen slipped. Her hand slid down the fence, and she stumbled backwards so fast she almost face-planted in the dirt. There was a collective gasp. A kid whispered, "Bro, is she okay?" Someone else muttered, "This is better than Netflix." She stood up slowly, wobbling, covered in dust, hair sticking to her face like wet spaghetti. Her pride was injured far more than her body. She pointed at me with a shaking hand. "That's illegal. You're bullying a board member." I blinked. "I'm standing on my own property." She puffed up her chest, trying to regain control. "That's it," she hissed. "I'm calling the police." The phone call. She whipped out her phone so fast she nearly dropped it. Her fingers shook as she dialed. She pressed the speaker button, on purpose, so everyone could hear she wasn't bluffing. "Yes," she barked when a dispatcher answered. "I need officers at Maple Ridge Estates. We have a homeowner blocking a community event and refusing to open HOA property." I raised a hand. "Tell them it's private property," I said loudly. She covered the speaker and growled, "Stop talking." When she finally hung up, she looked at me with the face of someone who believed backup was on the way. Backup that would magically prove her right. I crossed my arms. "Perfect," I said. "Please do call them. Maybe hearing property law from actual officers will help." She let out a frustrated screech, stomped her foot on the ground, and turned her back to me like we were in a playground argument. The crowd's embarrassment grew even more now. A mom whispered to her son, "Let's just go home. This is too much." A couple of teens started recording the whole thing on their phones. One guy said loudly, "I knew this was fishy. The HOA never does events without flyers." Someone else added, "Karen told us the board voted for this, but the president said they didn't." The truth had officially caught up to her. She stood there, arms crossed, frustrated tears in her eyes, trying to hold on to whatever was left of her pride. But she wasn't ready to stop. Oh no. Karen was preparing to double down, and the cops were already on their way. But none of us were prepared for what happened next, because when the officers arrived, Karen tried to pull the one lie so ridiculous, so unbelievable, that even the police had to stop and say, "Wait, what?" The police cars rolled into Maple Ridge Estates like they were entering a movie set. 2 Jefferson County Sheriff's deputies stepped out, Officer Daniels and Officer Ruiz. Both looked calm, professional, and already tired of whatever they were about to walk into. Karen, of course, sprinted toward them like she had been waiting her whole life for this moment. "This way, officers!" she shouted, waving her arms like she was directing air traffic. "We have a major violation of HOA authority." I stood at my locked lake gate, arms crossed, just watching. Behind her, about 15 confused neighbors lingered with fishing poles and folding chairs, looking like they were still trying to understand how they had ended up in the middle of a property dispute. Officer Daniels approached us first. "All right," he said, voice level and calm. "What seems to be the issue here?" Karen stepped forward so fast she nearly tripped over her own feet. "This man," she jabbed her finger at me like she was accusing me of arson, "is illegally blocking a community event and breaking HOA rules." Officer Daniels nodded slowly, turning to me. "Sir, can you explain what's going on?" "Yes," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Karen tried to host a community fishing event on my private lake." "Private?" she snapped. "The lake is not private. It's part of Maple Ridge." I didn't argue. Instead, I reached into my folder and handed the officer 3 documents. My property deed from 2018, the Lake Pineview easement map showing exclusive access to the lakefront owners, and the HOA bylaws, specifically Section 4.2. Officer Daniels flipped through them carefully while Officer Ruiz examined the map. After about 20 seconds, Daniels looked up. "Ma'am, this clearly shows the lake is private property. The easement says exclusive use for the lakefront owners only. That includes him." Her jaw dropped so hard you could almost hear an echo. "That's wrong," she yelled. "I'm the HOA vice president. I outrank him.
Officer Ruiz almost choked, trying not to laugh. "Ma'am," she said gently, "HOA positions don't override state law or deeded property. You can't just outrank someone on their own land." But Karen wasn't done. "Oh, really?" she snapped, shifting strategies instantly. "Well, the water touches my backyard. That makes it community property." Officer Daniels laid the map flat on the back of his patrol car and pointed at the boundary lines. "Your backyard ends here." He tapped her property line. "And this land, between your yard and the lake, is his. The lake belongs to him and the other lakefront owners, not the HOA. Karen crossed her arms like a 5-year-old about to throw a tantrum. "Well, I want to file a trespass claim against him." Silence. Then Officer Daniels shook his head slowly, the way a teacher does when a kid says something impossible. "Ma'am, he cannot trespass on land that he owns." "But I'm the HOA vice president," she repeated, practically shrieking now. "I have rights." A few ducks on the lake actually flew off at the sound of her scream. One of the neighbors whispered, "Oh boy, here she goes again." Officer Ruiz stepped forward. "Ma'am, if you continue to escalate the situation, we may have to ask you to step back. This is not an HOA issue anymore. This is a private property matter." Karen stomped her foot on the ground so hard her sandal made a loud slapping sound. "This is harassment. He's harassing me. He's blocking my event." Officer Daniels took a breath. "Let me make something very clear," he said. "This lake is not HOA property. This gate is on his land. He has every right to lock it. You had no authority to organize an event here." He paused, then added, "And if you keep trying to force access, you could be charged with criminal trespass under Missouri Revised Statutes, Chapter 569, 140. You could almost hear the neighbors gasp behind us. Karen froze. For the first time all morning, she looked scared. But fear only lasted 2 seconds before she spun around toward the crowd. "Everyone, go home. This event is canceled because someone wants to ruin the community spirit." The neighbors didn't argue. Most just packed up quietly, avoiding eye contact. A few whispered apologies to me before leaving. They knew they had been tricked. Karen stormed away from the lake, muttering to herself, clutching her cheap HOA binder to her chest like it was a life raft. She yelled one last thing over her shoulder. "This isn't over. I'm calling an emergency HOA meeting." Officer Daniels shook his head. "Sir," he said, handing my documents back, "you're in the right. If she keeps this up, give us a call. This isn't the first time we've been here for HOA drama. Sadly." I thanked them, and the deputies drove off. The lake grew quiet again. The sun reflected calmly on the water. It almost felt like the chaos was finally done. But it wasn't. Not even close. Because just 2 hours later, every homeowner got an email titled,
"Urgent HOA meeting, Lake Pineview property misconduct." And for the first time in years, Karen's own board members were ready to turn against her. But the real twist came later, when the HOA gathered for that emergency meeting, and Karen's 5-year reign of chaos finally started to collapse in front of the whole neighborhood. June 23, 2023. A warm Friday evening in Maple Ridge Estates. Yet the air felt heavy, like the whole neighborhood knew something big was about to happen. The HOA's emergency meeting wasn't just busy, it was packed. Cars lined both sides of the clubhouse parking lot. People walked in groups, whispering about the lake drama. Even folks who usually skipped meetings were there. When the HOA drama is this spicy, nobody stays home. Inside, every folding chair was taken. Some people stood along the walls. It felt like a courtroom, except with Costco cookies in the corner. And front and center sat Karen, not in her usual vice president seat, but in the row reserved for residents facing complaints. She looked furious and embarrassed all at once, clutching her binder so hard her knuckles turned white. Her tiny dog Nugget sat trembling in her lap, probably wondering why her owner was vibrating like a broken washing machine. At the long table in front were the board members. Tom, the HOA president, calm, tired, and trying not to sigh every 10 seconds. Linda, the treasurer, stern, with reading glasses that made her look like an angry librarian. Marcy, Doug, and Frank, the remaining 3 board members, all looking very, very done with Karen's behavior. And then, on the far left, sat someone new, a man in a gray suit with a thick binder and a calm face, the HOA attorney. This was the moment things got real. The meeting begins. Tom cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss the incident at Lake Pineview on June 17th. Karen immediately shot up from her chair. "I'd like to begin my defense." "Sit down, Karen," Linda said. The crowd let out a, "Ooh." Karen slowly sat back down, red-faced. The attorney stood. "Good evening. I've reviewed all documents, witness statements, video footage from residents, and the police report." Karen blinked. "There was a police report?" "Yes," the attorney said, "filed by the responding officers to document inappropriate HOA action." Her face went pale. He continued, "Let's begin with violation number 1, misrepresentation of HOA authority." He opened his binder. "You announced a community fishing event and told residents the HOA approved it. This was false. The board never approved such an event." Karen muttered, "I was trying to help the community." The attorney continued like she never spoke. Violation 2, organizing an unauthorized event on private property. Lake Pineview is protected by an exclusive use easement under the homeowner's deed. He turned a page. Violation 3, attempting to force access to deeded private property. Under Missouri Revised Statutes 448.3-103, the HOA has no power, 0, to take or use private property assigned by deed. People murmured. Some nodded. Karen crossed her arms tighter. And lastly, the attorney said, Violation 4, HOA Code of Conduct Rule 7.4, misuse of board position, which states that board members shall not use their position to override property rights or pressure residents for personal agendas. The room went quiet. You could hear Nugget's tiny breath. Karen's turn. Tom folded his hands. "Karen, you may respond." Karen stood up again, trying to look confident, but her voice cracked. I was doing what any good HOA leader would do. The lake should be for everyone. I wasn't hurting anyone. And he shouldn't block water that belongs to the community." The attorney waited for her to finish. Then he calmly said, "Ma'am, the lake does not belong to the community. It belongs to the homeowner and the other lakefront properties. Your personal opinions do not override state law." Someone in the back whispered, "Finally, someone said it." Karen's eyes darted around. She looked like she was searching for someone, anyone, to back her up. No one did. The board votes. Tom took a deep breath. "The board will now vote on whether to remove Karen Harrison from her position as vice president of the Maple Ridge HOA, effective immediately." Karen gasped. "You can't just—" "Karen," Linda cut in. "Please stop." Tom looked down the line. "Marcy? Remove. Doug? Remove. Frank? Remove. Linda? Oh, definitely remove." Then Tom looked at Karen. "I vote remove as well." The final count? 5-0. Unanimous. Karen looked stunned, like someone had unplugged her brain. Nugget whimpered, sensing defeat. The attorney closed his binder. "Miss Harrison, you are no longer authorized to speak or act on behalf of the HOA. You are a regular resident, effective immediately." You could almost hear the sound of a queen losing her crown. In the aftermath. That night, several residents came up to me. Some apologized for following Karen to the lake that morning without knowing the truth. Another older couple brought me homemade cookies. Another neighbor handed me a tray of smoked ribs he had prepared for the event. I gotta be honest, if every HOA conflict ended with ribs, I'd pick fights more often. Speaking of the lake, I made a few upgrades. A stronger steel lock on the gate, clear, private lake, deeded access only signs, and motion-activated lights. And I made sure everything matched Missouri property law so there was no confusion. After that, no one ever tried to sneak in again. Well, except ducks. They don't care about laws. And Karen? Oh, Karen still lives in Maple Ridge Estates. Every time she walks her tiny dog past my property, she stares straight ahead, eyes forward like she's pretending I don't exist. No more shouting, no more demanding, no more "I have rights" speeches. It's amazing how quiet she became once she lost the power she abused. In the end, the HOA didn't take her rights away. They just took away her illusion that she had more rights than everyone else. She spent years trying to take over a lake she didn't own, and all she earned was a reputation she'll never live down. Like and subscribe for the next crazy chapter. I promise it gets even better.